What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to be going over a Prismatic Titan build using that Stoicism, our nice class item for our Titan, with the Spirit of Severance as well as the Spirit of Contact, allowing us to suspend and absolutely annihilate enemies with this combination, as well as the build I'm going to show y'all. So let's get right into it. Starting us out right here, we have the Spirit of Severance, powered melee or finisher final blows, unleash a damaging explosion. On top of that, we got Spirit of Contact, damaging a target with that melee causes all targets to suffer a strike of lightning and become jolted. So the combination of both of those with the melee final blows and contact with that nice jolt allows us to wipe out entire rooms of enemies with the explosion plus the jolt of these melee. So it is absolutely crazy, the synergy of this drop for our exotic class item. Moving on to our abilities, aspects, and fragments, we're using that Twilight Arsenal for weakening targets. Those Void Axes, super fun to use, allow us to do a little bit more DPS as well with those void weapons. Barricade and your jump, totally up to you, personal preference. Now for me, I went with Thunderclap, seemed like the best AoE to have our class item proc for both that contact and severance, and then I went with Shackle for a few different reasons. Applies that debuff for the strand, allowing us to suspend unstoppables as well. On top of that, we're going to be using Knockout with this, so our range and damage is going to increase when we critically wound or break a target's shield. So very good combination with the class item that we have. And then we're going to be able to suspend even more with Dranger's Lash right here. So the combination of all of these just plays perfectly with our class item. As for fragments down here, we got Facet of Courage. So our arc, solar, or void abilities deal increased damage to targets affected by that darkness debuff. So that is why we're using a shackle grenade plus the suspend right here. When we have that suspend on those targets, our arc melee right here is going to do more damage because of Facet of Courage. Top of that, we're going to have Facet of Sacrifice. Well, we have that arc, solar, or that void buff. It allows ability final blows to grant darkness transcendence. So that is why we are over here with that amplification, restore some health for us for those melee attacks, allowing us to get that darkness transcendence a little bit easier. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness, or our super final blows that generate elemental pickups for us, matching the damage type. So we're going to create a bunch of different elemental types with this. Strand tangles, a bunch of the ionic traces from the arc, as well as a few of those little void breaches from our super and our weapons. Facet of Protection, while we are surrounded, we are more resistant to that incoming damage, while Transcendent, it is even more increased. So this will help us because this is a melee build for sure. Facet of Balance is our last one. Rapidly defeating targets with our light damage grant us melee. Reading them with the darkness grants us grenade energy, so allows us to spam our abilities even more with our Thunderclap as well as our shackle grenade. When we move on to weapons, we're going to go with the Monte Carlo, of course, with this build because we're trying to use our melee as much as possible, plus with our melee damage as well as those defeats, stacks up damage for the Monte Carlo in itself, so a perfect little internal feedback loop and synergy. As for our energy weapons, went with a couple different options for y'all. Embraced Identity, getting the enhanced version with that precision instrument, as well as that rewind rounds, so it's going to be absolutely disgusting for some damage. But we do got the Recluse as an option for that barrier champions. We got the Indebted Kindness, absolutely love this thing, helps us with those unstoppables. But we do have Suspend, so that'll be all right. Our melee in its own self will be able to jolt for the overload. And then I did have the Basso Fascinato right here with 1-2 punch to allow us to do a little bit more damage, but wasn't enjoying it as much as our other options like our sniper Sniper, Recluse, or Indebted. As for our heavy, went with the Pro Memoria or Hammerhead, totally up to you. If it feels good with doing more damage, this will be nice because we get that extra damage with our super and that weakening, as well as our artifact, which you will see in a second. But this will allow us to become transcendent a little bit quicker, because if we're not using the Pro Memoria, it's basically all light and kinetic weapons, so the darkness isn't coming as fast. But that is why we have this right here, so, or I should say this one right here with Facet of Sacrifice, so it helps us to get back that transcendent energy a little bit quicker if we're using all light weapons. Now, as for stats that we went for, as well as our mods that we have on, I went with Resilience, Recovery at number 1, with the Strength at number 3 right here, and then the Discipline as high as it could go as our number 4. Got that triple 100s on this build. I know not everybody can get that, but I would go with Resilience as your first option, then probably Recovery at least at 80 for this build, Strength, try to put it up to at least 80 as well, and then Discipline in that 50-60 range is perfect. As for mods, we got Kinetic Siphon as well as Harmonic Siphon, so we're going to create Orbs of Power everywhere, with Heavy Ammo Finder to keep that machine gun up and running. Melee Kickstart right here, when our melee is fully gone and we have some armor charges, we're going to be able to get a nice chunk of that melee back, allowing us to spam it a little bit more often. If you want, instead of this, since we are using Monte Carlo, you could throw on a Heavy-Handed to help us to create a little bit more of those Orbs of Power, or even something, if you didn't want that, you could just throw on something like Impact Induction as well as Focusing Strike, so you can give yourself even more of a little feedback loop with getting your class ability, getting your grenade by causing damage with each other. As for your chest piece, basically always going with either your Reservoir for like the solar or void weapons, whatever you guys are using. Now we also go with our resistance mods, totally up to you and the activity you're going into. Onto our armor mod, for our legs right here, we got Orbs of Restoration, Recuperation, and Absolution, allowing us to get our abilities back a little bit faster with Orbs of Restoration and Absolution, and then get some health back when we do pick those up as well. Last but not least, Outreach, so when we do throw down our ability with that Suspend inside of the Severance and that Dranker's Lash, we're going to get our melee back because of that double Outreach, as well as this should not be time dilation, it should definitely be Reaper is what I meant, so we could do even more of those Orbs of Power. See, we all makes even little mistakes, so don't worry about a thing. But this build will allow us to get so many Orbs of Power with our Kinetic Siphon. If you go this route, you're able to spam your abilities even a little bit more often, but I was liking having that melee kickstart help me proc even more often when I was using something like our other weapons instead of Monte Carlo. Now, last but not least, we have our artifact right here. So I did throw on the anti-barrier submachine gun if we are using it for the Recluse. We are using authorized mods right here to make our elemental charge mods a little bit less on the build that we got. Right here, didn't really know where else to go because we're not using any of these besides with the Indebted Kindness has the Sundering, as well as the Pro Memoria has Dealer's Choice, so totally up to you in that category. For me, I went with Elemental Siphon right here, so we're able to get a bunch of different elemental pickups again, like I said, with those jolts, tangles, as well as those void breaches. On top of that, we're going to get weapon stability, handling, reload when we break those targets, as well as that threaded blast. If we are using the Pro Memoria, we're going to be able to get even more of that big explosion from destroying the tangles. Counter energy, give us a little bit more of that ability energy when we stun a champion, as well as radiant orbs right here, so we can get that nice little radiant when we pick up those Orbs of Power. With shield crush right here, when we have an overshield amplified radiant, we are able to get different things like our melee and grenade, as well as expanding abyss like I was talking about. That weakening from our super allows us to do that 35% damage with our void weapons, so if we're using our sniper, can juice some damage, as well as killing tally on that hammerhead. So this build totally in my my opinion, revolves more around that Monte Carlo, being able to have our class ability up to Suspend with that Dranger's Lash, as well as all that powered melee and finisher final blows that we got with the contact on top of that. So this build causes a bunch of different explosions, a bunch of different ad clear potentials. We can stun all of our champions basically. We're doing a bunch of different damage because of our fragments that we have on this build, and a lot of different options for weapons. So hopefully y'all can try this out. Very fun combination for our exotic class item. Lots more builds to come. Big day for reset today. Hopefully y'all enjoy. I will catch you guys in the next one. I appreciate all you guys for coming back and sticking with the channel. Means a lot to me. And again, love you guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace.